Hello, and welcome to Magic is Real, a podcast focused on the fascinating world of near-death experiences, spirit communication, and all things metaphysical and spiritual. The mission of this project is to share messages of hope and inspiration with others, and to spread the word that death is only an illusion. Thank you for being here with an open heart and mind. I wish you peace, light, and love always. Hello, Magic is Real listeners. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm here today with Tyler Diehl, coming to us from Hawaii to tell us about his near-death experience, what that experience has taught him, and to talk about the remote healing work that he does as well. Welcome, Tyler. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here today.
Thank you, Shannon. It's an honor to be here. It's great. Thank you very much.
It is an honor to have you. So first, I'd like to start by, let me just ask a little bit about you. I know that you now, where you are now in your life, you do remote healing and you also have your own business. But I'd love to hear also about your background and how you grew up, what your spiritual beliefs may have been or not been. Anything that you'd like to share about who you were before this happened.
Absolutely. So as a young child, I grew up, the first 4 years of my life, had grown up on a orchard in Northern California. And then after I was 4, our family moved up to Washington State. But it was those first 4 years, I believe, were pivotal to just kind of how I had a connection with the planet and with the earth, and wasn't so much discovering who I was, but I came in, you could say, very conscious and very aware of people around me and their emotions, as well as seeing fairies and spirits and being connected to the earth. I was always out by this oak tree that I loved with a tire swing on it, and I would talk to it and swing and talk to the earth and the grass and the wind. And so the elements were really my friend, and that's kind of how it was just a very natural part of who I was. And I also had like a message when I was young, before we left California, that came in quite clearly, and that was you're gonna have to learn how to express yourself and love yourself, basically. And that I didn't really understand at the time, because I felt like I already was expressing myself. I could always tell when my family was down or they would have guests over, I would always run out, entertain them in some way. And then also this concept of loving yourself was very strange to a 3 or 4 year old. So it's like I already liked what I was. So this was something, I think it was a message that I had learned, that I needed to know at that time, that I discovered later on. I didn't come from a traditional church background. My mom, and sometimes my dad, but mostly my mom, would go to Unity Church every Sunday. And I didn't really have a concept of what God was from a church perspective or a religious perspective, or the teachings of Jesus. I always knew there was a higher presence, a connection to, some people call the universe or God or source. And that just felt something that was natural to me at a young age as well. So then when our family moved up to Washington, like as a 4-year-old, you don't really know what your family is doing, right? So it was like all of a sudden a moving van showed up and all of our stuff went in it, and then we left, and that was like in shock. And I think that's at that moment I started to just kind of suppress everything, and my playful nature and my the feelings I was feeling, I began to suppress and repress. And so there was an intensity there as far as depression, but it was also kind of a longing to go back to that childhood part of me. So as a teenager, I would do stuff like, I grew up in Seattle in the 80s and the 90s. So, I would go to parties and Nirvana would be there, and, Mudhoney and all these bands that had blown up later on. And I got into music, and I got into, smoking dope and drinking at a very young age. And it was all a part of me kind of just suppressing a lot of these feelings. And so when I graduated from high school and I applied for one college, it was Humboldt State University. It's now called Cal Poly Humboldt, and I got accepted. And so I got in my Chevy Suburban and headed down to California, back to California. So I was excited to go back to a place that always kind of felt like home to me. All of California had felt that way to me. It always has in some regards. So I went back to school, and as soon as I got there, you know, I made friends. I was in a beautiful place. The redwood forest was there, and I just it was like it almost happened, not instantly, but very quickly. I just got really depressed really fast, and it's almost like I didn't know exactly where it was coming from. It was a full body feeling. It was I say visceral and physiological, meaning my body was feeling it, and visceral meaning that it would come out of nowhere. Like it was just, I would wake up and feel these floods of depression. So then I began to form this belief that there was something wrong with me, that because I was feeling the way I was feeling, that there was something wrong with me. And that was actually me, all of these feelings, all of that, you know, it didn't make sense to me. And I didn't know how to ask for help. So I wasn't somebody that, you know, my mom was a psychotherapist, and I kind of understood, you know, I watched her as she developed into a psychotherapist. And when I was a teenager, you know, she'd grab a hose and beat the phone books, and she would give me the hose sometimes and say, you can beat the phone books too. So I like my idea of getting help was it was kind of weird for me, and asking for help. I was such a shy and intuitive person. So that I didn't know how to ask for help, and I covered it up. And bless you.
Thank you. Excuse me.
You're fine. And so I just didn't ask for help. I had a connection with the divine, and so I felt like that was a connection that even though I had it throughout my life, like when I was young, 4 years old, and even not so much when I was a teenager, I felt like at that moment when I was feeling so much depression, and that I needed to rekindle that connection. But it came in a way out of desperation, and it came out of a way where I was stating that I didn't want to be alive anymore, because I didn't think that life was fun. You know, I went into the redwoods often on my mountain bike, because that was a way of kind of just chilling out and getting away from my feelings in a way. But it was also very helpful just being there with the trees. I'd go to the ocean as well. The ocean wasn't too far away, so I would go to the beach, and I love the beach. I always have. But there was still something there. It was like I had to deal with, and I didn't know how to do that. So I got to a point. I did okay in college. With my grades were okay. I think I flunked one class. It was the first class I ever flunked. It was philosophy, which I thought was funny, because I thought I knew everything about the universe and understood what these philosophers were saying. And you know, and I made some good friends, as good of friends as you can meet in college. And so, but there was this underlining, I didn't show it. I didn't want to be here. And I began to state that firmly in my mind, and even out loud when I was alone. I don't want to be here. God, source, I don't remember quite the terminology I used at the time, but please take me. And this happened for several months. I was feeling this way. And at the end of my second semester, my second year, I got to the point where it was just, you know, I didn't want to kill myself. It was like, you know, maybe I didn't like myself, but that's not the way I wanted to do it. I just wanted it to be, you know, an easy button to press. And I was asking for that easy button, and I got it. So I don't know if this is where you want me to go into it, or
Yeah, no, and
okay.
I'll just do a little segue. It's so interesting to me. There's so much in there that resonates with me as well. Just those college years, and you and I grew up around the same time. It was the grunge era. So I really appreciate you setting the scene as well. Those were the best years for music. That I too was drinking and doing drugs and smoking and just angsty in my Doc Martin boots. And And it's like, I remember feeling that same way. It's so relatable that I didn't want to be here anymore, but I personally didn't want to do it to my family, or I didn't have the courage to take my life, thank God, because I look at where I am now and I just think, thank God I held on. And I always encourage other people. I promise it'll get better. But so thank you for sharing that. I know it's deeply personal, but it also really informs what happened. And I also want to talk more about that. So just wanted to share first, thank you for your vulnerability in sharing that, and let you know too that that's actually for me very relatable. And I'm sure a lot of other people. I remember waking up with that sense of dread all the time and thinking it was normal. Just, I don't know what I don't, still to this day, I don't know what that emptiness was exactly, but I do think it was what we call addiction recovery, a God-sized hole. There's just something not like just felt like something was missing. So I wanted to just commiserate and then say yes. Now,
Yeah.
um, anything you want to say before that is fine, but also, yeah, then you can tell us what happened when you're ready.
Well, I appreciate that, just showing that relatability, because I think that, that makes connections as well with people that
I do too.
feel that way. And, and you can feel that way at any stage of your life, I have discovered. I think when you're in your teens and early 20s, there's a lot of people that feel that way, because
Yeah.
it's like, what do I do? What's my passion? We're thrown into college.
Yeah.
It's, there's no break from our studies, and we don't get a chance to explore, maybe we don't need to go to college. Maybe we
Yeah.
need to discover a trade, and maybe, so, so I think there is that focus in at least in the Western world for sure. It's like study, 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 achieve, achieve, achieve. And I mean, I got straight A's pretty much in high school, and then it kind of went down after that. But yeah, that emptiness, it can feel very, very real. It is very real. And we don't know how, and it feels very alone. We
Yeah.
can have 1,000 people around us feeling the
Hmm.
exact same way, and we think that we're the only ones that are feeling that. So, um, yeah. So, like you had said, I mean, absolutely, it will get better. I mean, we are here. I don't want to sound like everyone else. Like, we are here for a purpose, but I think that's part of being just human, is like going through these stages, getting to the point where we honor ourselves more and we love ourselves more, and then the magic starts to happen. And
Yeah. And on that note, it's when you're that age, even if you have a mother who's a psychotherapist, and I had wonderful parents, I have still, we just don't have the coping tools for being an adult and dealing with big feelings. And I think sometimes people don't think to tell us because we come up with all this stuff like relationships and dating and school and pressure, and you just don't have the experience yet to know how to deal with all that stress, and we internalize it so much of the time, or check out by drinking, or just trying to escape from the heaviness of now I'm an adult. I think I think that's pretty normal, but also feeling overwhelmed. I remember turning 21 and being like, that's it, it's all over. I'm no longer a kid. I might as well just be dead. So I know. And I think it is important to talk about, just first to let people know that it's normal. It will, obviously people might have clinical depression and all of those things. Please seek treatment if you do. But sometimes it does, it's just that coming of age feeling. And there's so much processing of making that change. And anyway, I didn't mean to digress, but I think it is important to talk about that as well. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it is important, because our parents weren't taught how to do this, and it kind
Yeah.
of, there's no one to blame. It's like the thread that
Yeah.
goes back through our ancestors. It's like you can't pinpoint somebody and say, well, I blame them for what happened when I was a kid. You really can't. I mean, it's
Yeah.
maybe there's a point now in the world that we're moving into, hopefully, that we can just kind of put a stop to it. And what I mean by that is like begin to educate, kids when they're young, how to deal with their emotions in a healthy way, and that they're not bad. I mean, things I wish I learned in school, right? Is,
That's what they should teach
like,
in college.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
also like how to make money. Like once you get out of high school or get out of college, it's like how to
I know.
save and how to invest, and all of
Life
these little,
skills.
yeah, just like simple life skills that we could have learned starting in like fifth grade, when are, you know, when we're like 10 years old and our brain begins to really start kicking in and developing. So yeah, I mean, and that's my hope. That's my hope, that things will begin to change in that direction. But yeah, I just had a brain pause. But yeah, I
Yeah.
appreciate like just being able to talk with you about that, because I think it's important that people kind of, you know, they don't hold on to that belief that there's something wrong with me, or I you know, that emotions are bad, or any of these things that really make us, you know, just being humans on this planet,
Yeah. And
you know. And then
emotions
I
are
think,
temporary.
yeah, and then it's all like, that's the thing. It's like, you know, we can't divide the spiritual from this, because it is spiritual, that
Yeah.
our experience is embodying whatever it is, whatever's going on in our lives. That is a spiritual experience. It's not separate from or better than, you know, having these near-death experiences, or having, you know, amazing transformational experiences, or connecting with your guides, or whatever that is. I mean, that's all beautiful too, but if we can kind of embrace that other part too, then I think that's where the magic also happens. So,
Yeah. And it sounds to me, as we segue into the near-death experience itself, it really does feel like so many people I know who've had near-death experiences have had that feeling of, I don't want to be here anymore. And whatever you call, if you want to call it God, source, hears that, spirit hears that and says, all right, we're going to take you out. We're going to take you out of here. We're going to have a little conference here and see, and then maybe you'll rethink that. So I'd love to hear what happened to you.
absolutely. So I was at my wit's end, and my, you know, it was both my mental, I could say, my mental state, but also my emotional state. And so this "I don't want to be here anymore" turned into "Please take me now." And I was walking my bike through Arcata, little town, and I didn't care if anybody saw me. I don't think anybody was around, but it didn't matter. Just like, "Take me now." I probably, you know, look like a lot of people around
Yeah.
that town now. No judgment, but
Yeah.
you know, just kind of calling out and talking to themselves. But so yeah, so then I went about my days. I think it was about 4 days later, and I was uh, went into the forest, and I went on the trails. They were the bigger trails are walking trails and bike trails. So I was on those trails for a while, and then once I had decided after a couple hours that it was time to go home. This is like 9 in the morning, so there was still that, what they call the June gloom in
Yeah.
California. That, because it was the end of May, there was still fog. I think it was about by the time I decided to go home, it was around maybe 10:30ish or so. I didn't never had a watch on my wrist, and so that I took the bike trails. They weren't walking trails; they were just the bike trails back home, and there was a downhill trails, and I was used to them. You know, they're just moderate jumps, nothing big. They were just fun little jumps that I took. I never wore a helmet. I didn't think, you know, it was cool, and I wasn't like a competitive biker, so it didn't really matter.
I just want to say
And
my 8-year-old nephew, who just turned 9, actually rides those exact trails all the time,
oh,
like a demon. So yeah, like I know those trails.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, right
That's his
on.
whole
Yeah.
deal. He's so into it.
Well, there must have been a demon that built up the last trail, because, or the last jump, I should say, because I don't want to, you know, I don't know. Somebody who's probably just having fun. I'm like, I'm going to make this jump bigger. And so the last jump was super, super high. Like, and before, when I would take it, it was just like a little jump. But as soon as I hit it, I had noticed that somebody had built it up. Like, they packed the dirt and everything. And they must have spent hours like making it really, really high. And so as soon as I hit it, I was like, oh shit, basically. I knew that that I was gonna die or crash or whatever. And so like my body froze up, but there was a part of me that was just kind of let it happen. You know, I didn't try to jump off my bike. I didn't try to control the situation. And so I came down, like you would fly through the air, and then just came down on my front tire, and I came on my head. Was the first part of my body to hit, was my head, and then it was my neck, which, you know, could have made me lose all the feelings in my whole body. I mean, I could have been physically disabled just by hitting my head and my neck, and then I hit my back and slam. And so that was, as soon as I hit my back on the ground, the packed earth, that's when I had like just lost consciousness. I wasn't aware of anything at that moment, until the next moment, whenever that was. I was above the trees. I was above the redwood trees. You know how tall they are. I mean,
Yeah.
And I would say just above them, but around them, like they were kind of around me like this, but I was just above them. And it wasn't like an astral travel experience. I don't know if you've had that, Shannon, where it's like you or a lucid dream where you take your body with you and you kind of explore different realities and go on trips. It was just like, it was awareness. I describe it like a ball of light, but that's even limiting. It was like I was aware of everything around me, and it wasn't just my vision, but it was also what we'd have here on Earth as like physical sensations, but they were like heightened, like they're like blown way up. And so I could like immediately, I could see the detail and the fog coming through the trees, and like the little crystals forming on the needles of the redwoods. I could see the ocean and hear the ocean, like it was really close into my ears. As soon as I as soon as I focused on the ocean, which was about 5 miles away, I could hear it. It was like as soon as my attention went to something, I could hear it. And same with birds and dogs and other animals, little critters. Like as soon as I focused my attention on it, it's like it was right there. So it was like it was almost a part of me. Maybe it is. That's the whole point, right? The wind, even the wind. I mean, the wind has always been very, very powerful for me. I could feel that moving through me, not like I had a body, but it was just like I could feel it. And so this experience wasn't, it was very, very physical, even though I wasn't in a body, but it was very, very, I don't know how to explain it other than just like, just imagine that you look over somewhere and you can see all of a sudden like a little tiny ant on a tree. It's kind of like that, or you decide to, you decide to hear the ocean and it's right there. So it was like everything was kind of, these sounds and these feelings were kind of, they weren't really separate. They were all kind of happening at once. So I looked down at my body. If there was a sequential order of anything, I looked down at my body and I saw my body kind of twisted up on the ground. And then I came back to this experience of who I was above the trees. And there was a question that came to me. It wasn't like a voice, it was a cognitive knowing type question, like a direct cognition. How I would explain it would be, do you want to go further? And I'm guessing that meant, do you want to go further, like to the next level of the, next dimension, or explore more, or do you want to go back? And my instant reaction was, I don't want to die. And as soon as I said that, I was back in my body, breathing really heavily, trying to catch my breath. I couldn't move, but I could feel the pain. I could feel the pain going from my nerves all the way down to my muscles, and my muscles twitching. And so all kinds of throbbing pain, electrical pain, down to my toes, all the way up my back, my legs, everywhere in my body. And so like initially my eyes were closed, and then I began to open them, and there was like a haze over my eyes. But at the same time, I began to see fairies around, the redwood fairies of the land right there. And I saw them like a few months prior. I'll have to tell you about that.
Yeah,
But
I'd love to hear about that.
I saw them in a different way. Yeah. So when I saw them, it was like they were there for me. they knew what state I was in, and they were flying around me, and they were buzzing down and flying up. It was maybe a family. I could say anywhere from 15 to 30, 40. I don't know. I wasn't counting. I was just watching them, and they were giggling. Some of them had little garments on. They all had wings. They weren't speaking to me in English, but it was like their energy was like a joyful energy, and that was the point, was to bring that joy to me in like this traumatic experience. And so I was like, oh, okay, so they must have heard me, and then simultaneously, but it was like, that was like the first layer, and then the second layer was tuning into this humming noise, this amazing humming noise. It's like a Tibetan singing bowl is the best way to explain it. Like a deep one, not like almost like if there's a baritone singing bowl. I don't know if there is, but it was like a really deep one. And I could hear that. And then I knew it was the trees. Like instantly I knew it was the redwoods. And I could feel that. I could hear it and feel it as like a vibration moving through my whole body. So, and it was like this kind of just like this wash of energy. It was probably like helping my body with whatever trauma and calming it. That's looking back on it, I believe that's really what it was. These trees were doing. They were communicating with each other. I could feel their presence, and simultaneously I could feel this energy from the sound moving through my body. So it was a distraction from my pain, but at the same time, it was like exactly what I needed at that moment. And then the moment that I brought myself back to my pain and realized that it was there, that's when I lost consciousness again. It was like I was starting to breathe and I could feel the pain. It's like, I don't want to experience this. And that's when I lost consciousness again at that moment. So I don't know if you want me to just to keep talking, or I want you to have a chance to.
Thank you. That for some reason, I just got so choked up as you were telling that story. I mean, I hear these stories on a weekly basis, and I love them all. They all bring me such hope and inspiration, even though I know it's not easy to go through it. But just the fact, I think what gave me chills and I started to cry for some reason is just how universal your experience is. It feels so validating that just everything you talked about is exactly what everyone else says, that in different ways. But I think the image of you lifting up over the redwoods in itself, I don't know what it, I think it's because they're so tall and powerful and there's something about ascending, but I also became so choked up, and I know I've probably said this on the podcast, but not to you. So, but it was when you said that all of those sounds were happening, you would just focus on them and they would come closer and become part of you, and that you are part of nature and nature's part of you. What struck me about that is that I'm a medium, but I've only studied to do, I'm not somebody who as a child, I did see spirit one time as a child, but I didn't really kind of delve into it until now. So for me, I've often just wondered, is that spirit or is that my imagination? But one day recently, I was in Arizona and I hiked up by myself to these big rocks, and I was sitting there in total silence. And one of my best friends had just passed away, and it also made me cry thinking of what you said you experienced. I just imagined him. He also died in the woods, and it's like I just imagine, somehow that choked me up, just imagining this beautiful image of him. That's what he saw, and that's how he experienced it. I felt that. Maybe it's him conveying that to me, that yes, that's what it was, because I just suddenly felt like crying. But I said to him as I was sitting there on the rocks, I said, Derek, show me your spirit. I want to see. I want to see an image of your form. And what I heard him say was, you're looking at a dum-dum, as he used to always call me, his friends dum-dum. And I really was like, I really think that was him. I mean, I felt it so surely that he was showing me all the beauty and the nature. And then I started to hear him kind of say, I am the trees. I am the dirt. All of this is me. This is my spirit. like you're looking right at it. And so it gave me chills to sort of have that validated too, because I really do believe that's, and I just got chills again, that he's validating. Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you, is that we are all part of everything. All of those sounds are part of you at all times. You are part of it. And I just think that's incredible. Now,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and that just made me realize, you talking about that, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, like, that is confirmation. Sometimes our mind will tell us, oh, that's not real,
Yeah.
but we know, like, deep inside that it totally is.
Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, when you get those chills too, that is definitely spirit.
I
So
know.
that's like, confirmation right then and there.
Confirmation. That's
Yeah.
right. That's how I experience it too, is when spirit's speaking to me, it's confirmed by those I call them spirit tingles. Now, I am
Yeah.
interested to hear too, your experience was a little bit different in that you experienced the sighting of these fairies. Two questions. You had mentioned that you'd seen them as a child and also a few weeks before. I'd love to hear more about that and what you think those entity, or I don't know, spirits or beings are.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So a few weeks before, I would say it was more like 9 months, because I was in love with this woman, and we were both going to college, both in the same year, both in our second year. And I remember I was laying on her bed, and it was nighttime, and she was asleep, and my eyes were closed. And this is one of the first times I had like a third eye, I guess you could call it a third eye opening, or my inner vision began to really open. And so I saw them, and I was in this place where my heart was really open, and I just felt like I was totally in love, like I was in love with this person. Even in that space, it's like, my belief is there's no one can actually do that to you. You actually do it to yourself, within yourself.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. And in that space, just my heart being really open and beating, that's when I saw them. And
Oh,
I just
wow.
saw them slowly moving around them, maybe like three or four. Just saw them in, vivid color, and like their little auras were like sparkling and stuff. And I was like, wow. And I saw them around the redwoods. So even with my eyes closed, it was like I was in the presence. Even where she was living, there were redwoods around the house. So yeah, so that was like, and that's what they say also about kids. It's like, because kids have their hearts really open, they're able to, and when your heart's open, just to kind of go back, like when your heart opens, that moves the energy up naturally,
Yeah.
like to your throat and then your third eye. So you actually, the more your heart opens, the more you have inner vision as well.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's so interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what was happening at that moment. And I was like, oh wow, fairies are real. And it was a reminder that as a kid, that I had known that already, that fairies were
Yeah.
real. And so yeah, and then when they came to me later, that was, my heart wasn't open. I
Yeah.
had broken up with her, I think, several months back, and I was going through a hard time, but they were still there. And so I knew that they came in a different time and in a different way. So they came in one way, in one form, as my heart was open, and in the second way would have been, to lighten up the
Yeah.
the situation,
Let's
right?
lighten the
Like,
mood. It's
yeah, like,
interesting because the spirit I saw, which I still think could also be like an alien life form because I don't have confirmation yet, but I was 14 and I was in my bed and I had just turned off the light when a big blue orb appeared over my body and my bed. And what I always tell people when I relay it is it looked like Tinkerbell, not in the sense that there was a body. It didn't even have a face. Its mannerisms were like Tinkerbell. It was like I was scared only because I didn't expect to see it there. And it was in the 80s. And so we didn't have devices. So there was no source from which it came. So I screamed out of just, what is this? But it actually, I could tell, was just curious and looking at me. And it was sort of like looking at me in this really playful way. And it was zipping back and forth across the room and like playing. It was like a child. And then when I screamed, it shot up and disappeared. And then my mom came in and was like, oh, I'm sure your eyes are just playing tricks on you. But it wasn't. It was glowing bright blue. And so I always
wow.
wonder, like, you know, you said fairies are real. Like, are they spirits taking the form of this mythical creature, or is that actually their form? I wonder. I always thought that fairies were the friend who passed away on our friend's farm. And I've walked that farm with him and by myself. And there are these little bugs in Virginia that look like little fairies. And I remember saying to him, I bet you that's where people got the idea of fairies from, is like they're like little moths, but they look like fairies. But I like your sort of experience and definition better, which is that they are still real. Like, they actually are real. And maybe I would love to, I mean, I just want to know what your thoughts are. Have you ever sort of thought about what they are, where they come from, and are they spirit taking on a form, or is that actually their true form?
Mm. Yeah, great questions. So I haven't, over the years, I haven't done research, and I know that there are people out there, particularly in places like Ireland and the UK, that have done a lot of research, and there's even documented photography of fairies,
Yeah,
and
I think
even
I've
with
seen them.
like older photos before there was even digital photos, so there could be no rendition, right?
Right.
You see like little fairies sitting on rocks and such. So I don't have, I guess part of it has been because my experience was sacred to me, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to compare it or
Right.
do research and look at it in that way. I do know that from my knowing, they are like guardians of the earth. They love our planet Earth, and they are drawn to people, from my understanding, that also love the earth and that respect the earth, and also animals. So, and also, like, it's been interesting because I haven't talked about this for years. I never thought it was anything. People might think I'm crazy. I'm just a dude that lives here in Hawaii, and I do my own thing. Like, who's this guy talk about fairies, right? So for years, I never really like researched it or wanted to look and see more or anything like that until recently. After telling the story over the last few months, I saw a dragonfly in my backyard flying around, and I saw it literally turn into a fairy and shoot straight up like that. It was zipping by, and it like almost transformed itself. Maybe it was a fairy already, and then transformed
Yeah.
itself into a
To
physical form.
dragonfly. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't. I'm sure your audience
Yeah.
is very open to stuff like this,
Oh
but
yeah. I mean,
um,
yeah. We don't know. I mean, I know you don't have
yeah,
all the answers. It's just interesting
right.
based on, in fact, right now there's like massive spirit energy making my whole scalp tingle. So I know they're trying to communicate somehow or validate something. But I do,
Awesome.
I just think it's interesting because it's something not everybody has experienced, but I'm totally open to it. I believe you saw what you saw. And
Yeah.
I also know that, as you said, it was sacred to you. So you didn't want to sort of research it too much. I actually researched the blue orb later in life because I really wanted to know, let's just see what it is or isn't. I was open to scientific explanations. I'm like, could it be a hologram? Could it be some kind of a electromagnetic electron something? Literally, I
Yeah.
found nothing scientific to explain it. Everything that talked about blue orbs was like, it's spirit guides and or a spirit and or an alien life form, which I'm also open to because I think it's actually all connected. That it's aliens aren't really that. I think that's all just part of the same spiritual universe, and we're
Right.
all kind of part of it. So it goes kind of deep, but I wanted to just at least prove myself wrong. I was like, I'm open to what could it be? There's literally nothing. There's literally no scientific explanation. And I have no mental illness. I have no vision problems. I know what I saw. And
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to know. And it actually made me feel better to think that is it was what it was.
It
Maybe
is
it
what
was
it is.
yeah, it is
Right.
what it is. Maybe it was an interdimensional being that came through from another galaxy or something, but whatever it was, I saw it and how cool. And that's actually what helped me to accept. I was once told by a medium that it was meant for me to see then because I was always an atheist / agnostic. So that later in life, when I discovered my abilities, it would say, if you're questioning it, just remember, what was that then? And this was even before I knew I was a medium. So I think now I'm like, okay, I get it, because I still question it all the time, because it's so hard. It's so hard to believe that it's happening.
Yeah.
After giving like 200 mediumship readings, I still go, but did I just get lucky? Maybe they just wanted to believe it. And so that I'm like, how did I get all that? Maybe I don't know. I just, my logical brain wants to constantly argue with it. Even though I believe in it 100%. It's just that my
Yes.
brain keeps going, well, just to make sure, let's just make sure we're on the same page here. And I
Yes.
think that orb was there to remind me that you did see it. It is real. That we
Yeah.
showed that to you because you clearly need to see it with your eyes to believe it.
And and it comes unexpectedly. It's
Yeah.
almost like, we believe that, life should happen a certain way, or it happens sequentially. But when things just kind of come out of nowhere, it's almost it boggles us. So it kind
Yeah.
of throws us off that track. And I
Right.
think that's what it did for you. And then it makes you curious, right?
Yeah.
So you, like a kid, like you want to remain curious and
Yeah.
explore that.
And
So
that's why
yeah,
this
so
is
I
called Magic is Real, because I've finally proven to myself that it is real. Stop doing that. Stop
right.
doing that. But sometimes I get off track and I start to question everything, because it seems too, I think it's that part of us that is almost afraid to have that much hope or excitement about something. And most of the time I'm in it. I'm in the magic. I'm so excited. And then sometimes I just check myself. Make sure you're not crazy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
It's because it's like we can move into that space of so much joy and that magic, but there's like a part of us is like, oh, do I really want people to think I'm crazy? I
Right.
start laughing in public or seeing, it's just like, well, there's always a part that kind of, I guess, puts on the reins,
Yeah.
and tries to stop us from the amazing joy and excitement that we have around us, or that, that's who we are, that wants to come out, that like that child, right, that wants to come out and play. So
Yeah, as if life isn't miraculous enough. I just reminded
right.
myself of that today. I was driving down the road and I was like, oh, it's so beautiful here. And I was like, why do I ever question that it's real? Because all of this is real. I mean, why do we put trees and architecture, like the ability for humans to create architecture and computers and all of the things we take for granted, even just mating to create a new person. All of those things are miraculous, but we take them for granted as just our everyday. So I always remind myself, why is this any less profound? Or why, I mean, how could that, how could I question that? Because then
Yeah.
if we weren't so accustomed to it, we'd be like, what do you mean a man and a woman have sex and then a person comes out? That's crazy. But we
Right.
accept it as our
Yeah.
belief. So I think it's, why not go the next step? Why not believe in everything else? We believe in the galaxies, the solar system, the planets. What?
Yeah.
The
Right.
universe is ever expanding. So if you think of it that way, it actually only perpetuates my belief that there's magic is real.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, taking that next step. And for me, sometimes what I do is, if I were to just to take all the labels off of everything, or all of the past conditioning of this is how it is, then it becomes like a curious exploration, right? Like they call that wind. Well, what is it really? I
Yeah.
mean, what
Yeah.
is that really? Like that amazing thing that blows through the trees and touches your skin. It's like, that you could say, oh, well, it comes from, the clouds, and the clouds form a
Right.
certain way, and there's moisture. But it's like, if you take all of that away, like that's where the magic happens.
Or
There's
even, how does
that
that even
space.
happen? Or
Right.
even, what are clouds and gravity and all of it? It's amazing.
Yeah. It's incredible. Yeah.
And then I just want to take us back to the scene, because I know we all don't want to imagine you just lying there and leaving it. We want to know what happened. How
Are you
did you,
okay?
yeah, are you okay? I'm still worried about the former you that's there on the ground. How did you did somebody find you? How did you come out of this?
So I still don't have to this day who found me, or how I got to the hospital. I'm guessing it was
Wow.
an ambulance, but I don't know for sure. And that's because when I did research afterwards, I did end up in the hospital. But when I did research before and I called the hospital, I had asked them, well, who found me? I want to thank them. You know, like I was, you know, on the ground, I was hurt. And they're like, well, actually, sir, we don't have any record of anybody finding you or calling the accident in. I'm like, what? I was like, that's really strange.
That's so
And
weird.
yeah, it was really weird. And she's like, but the good news is you're considered a charity case and you don't have to pay any hospital bills. I'm like, okay.
Oh,
I was like,
fantastic.
yeah.
That worked out well.
Yeah. So my next actual, when I woke up, I was in the hospital, and it was surreal, surreal in a weird way, as opposed to surreal in a beautiful way. And,
Yeah.
you know, that I had just experienced. There was a doctor looking over me, and it felt like I was in the sci-fi movie. He had all this curly hair and these little spectacles. And he's like, you know, hello, you know, trying to bring me back. And who are you? You would ask me all these questions. And are you a man or a woman? I didn't know any of that. You know, what city are you in? Are you a student at Humboldt? You know, do you know anybody in town? I was just like, you know, like I had no idea. And then he asked me for do you have a phone number that we can call? Or do you know anybody in town? And so I blurted out a number, and I knew it came from my memory somehow.
Back when we had to know phone numbers by heart.
Right.
What would we do now?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Call so-and-so, right? Yeah.
And if I don't
Don't
make
know
it,
the
put me in a
number.
peasant's grave or whatever they called those places. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's funny.
Anonymous lies here. We gotta laugh. We gotta laugh about death.
No, it's like I can see that happening too. Like I just
A
blurted out
pauper's grave is
number.
what I was thinking of. Yeah.
A pauper's grave. Yeah. Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny if like I blurted out a number and the guy they call and they're like, we don't know who this guy is. It's just
I know.
blurted out a number, right?
So they called. Who answered
about?
the phone? So who answered the phone when they called?
So it was a family friend
Oh.
of my parents. My dad taught high school with the guy back, I think, in the 60s in Salinas, California. And so they had remained friends with my family for many years, and they retired in Arcata. And so
So they were your like emergency contact people.
Yeah.
And they remembered the number.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like you said, back when we had to memorize numbers
Yeah.
and bank accounts, you know,
Right.
and all that stuff, which wasn't really that long ago. I mean,
know.
maybe it is, maybe it was.
To some, but not to us. It's
weird.
yesterday. I know.
So yeah, they came and got me, and I was in a hell of a lot of pain, even though they were giving me pain meds and stuff. It was still very hard I had a concussion, a severe concussion, because I had hit my head first. And the doctor had said, you're very lucky you didn't break anything.
Didn't break your neck.
I didn't break my neck. I didn't break any bones. No bones were broken. So it was basically neurological damage from the impact that had hit both my neck and my back.
Wow.
And so I was in a lot of pain, and I didn't want to travel. I had decided that I didn't want to travel at that moment, but eventually my mom came down. It was about a week later, and she got me and put me on a plane, and we flew back to the Seattle area. So yeah, and then I went to I got MRIs, and CAT scans, and I saw a neurologist, and they're like, well, it looks like you just have some neurological damage. Here's some more pain pills. And I was thinking the first most important thing for me was to feel better in my body. And so I didn't explore. I didn't want to do it I just didn't have the answers that I needed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I feel like crap, but pain pills aren't going to help me. So I sought out alternative therapies. I knew a little bit about energy work, and there were a few people that I had trusted at the time that had helped me. And then additionally, another family friend gave me a recommendation for a network chiropractor in the area who was also a healer, a very gifted healer. And so network chiropractic has to do with the nervous system and helping the body heal through the nervous system. And so that just seemed like, oh yeah, that would make sense for me. So I saw him. I started seeing him twice a week, and then it became I think twice a week for like 3 months, and then it was like once a week for another 3 months. Then it was less. So within about 6 to 9 months, all of that pain that was very unbearable, I wasn't feeling anymore. So about 9 months later, I wasn't feeling anymore. And actually, within 12 months, I was on a plane to Australia. I had left Humboldt State and just decided to take a break from college, and went to Australia on a walkabout. But during that time, it was like, okay, this is my purpose was to feel better in my body, to heal my body, to learn about how to heal myself. And that's what he gave to me, this network chiropractor. He would explain to me, he's like, I'm not God, but I'm here to give you the energy you need to make the changes within your body. So that became a belief system of mine as far as healing is concerned, and helping people, that you're assisting them. You're not some magic, wonder that's gonna, everybody has to do their own work. So
you heal yourself with the help of a practitioner who understands the way energy heals. And actually,
yes.
I wonder if that guy's still around, because my sister has been searching for a chiropractor in that town. And she's like, there's one guy, he has a terrible bedside manner, in and out in 4 minutes, never asks me what's going on with my body or anything. So, but I'm so glad you found that person. But also, what was going on with you? Had your depression changed having had this experience? How were you emotionally feeling?
So emotionally, it was take what was happening prior to my near-death experience in college and serve it up on a platter times 10. So it was like, and I don't mean to laugh, but it's, you have to laugh when you look back at things. It's like, you're trying to get away from so much of what you're feeling. And then it's like, here it is. It's like, when we resist things, it's that belief.
What you resist,
it's that knowing
persists. Yeah.
Persists, right. And once we accept whatever it is that's there, then it has completed its role in our lives and it can move on, right? So here it is. Here's the depression, but also here's the anger, here's the resentment, here's the the rage, here's everything I had to look at. It's like this idea of the shadow self, right? It's like I became that shadow self. I had to emerge myself into that shadow self to actually bring light to it. And that was through the assistance of having people help me, but it was also just going within. If something bothered me on the outside, I had to go within and deal with it, feel the emotion and deal with it. So that became a part of me, that it became very important for me to figure this out on my own, even though I had help from others that could kind of guide me along the way.
Did you have a sense? I was just going to ask if you had a sense of a greater purpose, having had this experience where it was confirmed that there's more. And also, did you feel more of a sense of a greater purpose, or I chose to be here, and so I'm going to do this? Did any of that play into your emotional recovery as well?
Yeah, I think that it didn't happen immediately. It took time as I was clearing these different parts of myself and healing these different parts. It's like more light could come in, so more insight could come in, and more clarity about my direction. So it felt like I did want to. I wanted to be happier. I think that's became an underlying thing. It's like I wanted to find happiness in this life and do it in such a way where eventually I could kind of, help other people find happiness too. But in a sense, it became very personal and very selfish. It's like, I got to figure this out on my own before I can help anybody or do anything for anybody. Right. So, I had questioned for a long time, why did I come back? And I realized that over time that was the depressed part of me that didn't want to be here. It was the memories, the subconscious part of me that was stirring up all of this emotion. And that was just a part of me, but it wasn't like that part of me that was more all knowing, I guess you could say, that it was above the trees, that could feel the oneness of everything. So that part, I believe, knew better than that depressed part, right? So it became a process. To answer your question, became a process and a discovery of becoming happy. And so I didn't feel like I had this purpose to, create some grand thing for the planet or give this message, because I didn't even talk about this until started to talk about it until last year, I think. or even this year, really.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I've always been humble in that regard. Like now that I know that I can help and assist people, I'm still humble with it because I feel like people ultimately uh, help themselves.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question,
Yeah,
Shannon, but
absolutely. It does. And uh, at what point did you decide to go into the healing arts yourself officially?
so I had decided. So first of all, it was at Humboldt. I had dreadlocks, and I went up to my professor and I was like, I want to be an actor. And he said, well, if you're going to be an actor, you got to cut
Did
your
cut those dreads?
dreadlocks. And I'm thinking, what? Like I just played Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like I was Goldilocks, you know. So anyway, so that's where I thought I was going prior to my accident, was acting. And I ended up going to drama school in Australia. And then when I came back to Hawaii back in 2000, um, I had like this real urge to be able, or this need, this desire to do body work and to learn healing. And so I took a course in Lomi Lomi from a Hawaiian woman who's no longer with us, named Auntie Margaret Machado. And she taught me Lomi Lomi, and she taught me about how touching somebody is, you're actually praying on that. You're giving, it's like a prayer. And so that was a really good introduction to healing work for me. And then I ended up going back to Humboldt County, believe it or not, to learn massage therapy in Southern Humboldt. And that's where I went to Heartwood Institute. I took a program there. So I was simultaneously doing acting, but it was like the body work was always my bread and butter. And then I developed a practice, and that evolved into being able to listen and see into the body and see where energy was stuck within the body, and then help people release some of that tension. So somebody could actually talk about what was going on in their lives, and instantly I could see it where it was being held, like as little molecules, like at C7 where the nerve comes out from C7, or so that started to happen. And then so 22 years I've been doing body work. I don't practice it anymore unless it's with family or friends, but I had a practice in Florida, in California, a little bit here in Hawaii and Arizona. And then I began to notice that I could do work with people remotely. And I've been doing that for a while now. And where I don't have to touch anybody, I could actually, have a Skype conversation like I'm having with you, and just have a discussion and talk. And it's really about listening and seeing what what the person needs, and guiding them back to that joy.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
within
I'm
them.
actually Reiki certified, so I don't do much of it. I still feel like it's so vague to me. Like I've taken it twice, and I haven't done master level yet, because I also feel for myself that you don't necessarily need to be Reiki certified to be able to set an intention of sending energy. I know that, in the Reiki world, it's important. You do need to know the symbols, and connect with the guides and all of that stuff, and which I fully respect. But I also feel that we can heal, we can help each other heal simply by, I don't know why it works, but all I know is I gave my friend a Reiki session, and she'd gone through so many insane losses and back pain, which I believe is related to the loss of her brother and her mother. But I finished on her and really just it was a prayer. It was me just sort of supporting her, holding her. She cried and said this was so like so healing for me. And I believe that my feeling about it was that yes, there is power in energy, and connecting with source and bringing that source energy forth through the power of intention, and also that person agreeing to receive. But it's also, even if that wasn't a thing, just human touch, whether it's or just intention to care for somebody. So all I
Mm,
did was hold her head, support her head in my hands. And I had that thought that really it's about being able to let go and let someone else take care of you in itself is so
mm,
healing, is just to be able to release and give it up to anyone else but yourself. because we internalize so much of our pain. What if we just allow another person to say, I got you. Just, you don't do
Mm,
anything. You just talk, you focus on healing. I'm going to do the work and I'm going to support you. And I think just that love, like the love energy is what
mm,
heals as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts too about what you think it is and how it works, or anything
mm.
else that came to your mind.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful, Shannon, because that's it. That's it. It's as simple as that. I mean, we can get very technical with it
Yeah.
and say, yeah, well, it comes from, this part of the universe or this part of God or whatever it is. But that's it. It's just it's opening the heart and being there for somebody and connecting with their heart, and it has to do with love. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't have to be just a session, right? It's like, when your mother gives you a gift or she says something and you feel that love, that's healing.
Mm-hmm.
When a teacher will say something to you that makes you feel good about your work, that's healing. um, you know um, Even through their voice, when you do like voice work,
Mm-hmm.
that voice has its own healing vibration. so
Yeah.
so all those people listening to that, in the future, now and for the next 40 years or however long, from that cartoon you did, or that commercial or whatever it was, like that's healing. So absolutely, I
That's
think it's
true.
just as simple as that. It's just opening your heart and being like, I got you. Like,
Yeah.
you know
I
that's
think it's even just in me, my biggest joy in mediumship is, yes, I can bring you through evidence to show you that your loved one is here. Yes, so much of the time, people have said to me, it's almost like you're embodying that person. I feel like I'm sitting with that person right now. That I attribute to spirit, not myself. I just being allowing that to come through. However, my favorite part of it is the connecting with somebody else. Even if the evidence, because sometimes I'll put a lot of pressure on myself. Like, it needs to be really mic drop. Like, I want to give them that evidence that they're like, there's no way that you could possibly have known that. And sometimes that comes through. And I'm even blown away when that happens. But not every reading goes that way. Sometimes it's just, I feel the energy there. I know they're here. I can feel them. But what I'm doing as well, and you're doing too, is holding space for somebody who's in grief or even just curious, whatever it is, just it's holding space for somebody else to talk about their loved one with me and have somebody listen. Because I think people, when they lose somebody, they're afraid to drain other people by talking about it all the time. And I get to be the person who's like, I want to talk about your loved one. I feel your loved one here. You're introducing me to your loved one right now, here and now. And that's so bonding. And it's just that mutual energy between us where we're connecting our souls and connecting our love energy, that my mentor keeps saying, Shannon, you have to stop giving 2-hour readings. And I'm like, but it's just that I really like to connect with people. Like, I really just, it, at this point, since I don't have so many clients that I'm drained, I just, yes, we do a reading, but then I just talk about their lives with, like, I want to know what they're going through and and I like to kind of help them sort things out. So I think that there's so much more to healing than just the laying of hands or I'm channeling your loved one now. And
Yeah.
they
So
like,
that's what you're doing.
yeah,
That's what you're doing. It's that mediumship work. You can put a label on it, and you have a mentor and all those things. But
yeah,
for you, it's that's your experience of it, right? And that's beautiful, and that's the healing. Like, what you're
yeah,
doing is just being there and being open. You're giving tremendous amount, and just wanting to help them and listen to them,
yeah,
and having that desire, just to be there. Like you said, that's the like the healing is a side effect that will
yeah,
just happen, right? And then
yeah,
just you showing up and them showing up, um, is that's great. I mean, you're gonna make it your own. If you want
yeah,
to continue to pursue that, you're gonna make it. You really will make it your own.
yeah. I
And it
think
will,
that's why we do it. It's healing for us too. I'm
yeah.
speaking for you, but I assume that's true
Oh, yeah,
because
absolutely,
I know it is.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, oh yeah, and I wanted to ask, after this experience, I know that you clearly had a very open heart and soul before this happened, because you were not taught any different. And you were raised like my niece and nephew are. They grew up in Sonoma and then somewhat here in Virginia, but also now in Humboldt, where they don't have devices. I mean, now they're 14 and 9, and yes, they have more time, but they didn't grow up with TV, no video games. It was all chickens and bunnies and being in nature and being nurtured in that way. My niece had just gave her goats away, but she built her own goat pen, and that all that stuff helps them be so present, but also so open, because their minds are still and they're able to just be with nature. And I think clearly you were raised similarly, as are many people in that area. That's why people live there, because it's important to stay connected to nature. But would you say, did you notice any changes in we all have these abilities to connect with spirit. After this happened, did you notice any changes? Did you have visual changes or perception? You did say that you get downloads. Oh, I think you
Yeah.
did. Was that, yeah? Either you said that here or in another interview I watched with you. But yeah, how has that, and how does it play into your work as well? How do your intuitive abilities um contribute to the work that you do?
So it wasn't instant. Again, everything has been a slow progression for me after my near-death experience, as far as gifts are concerned, or what you would consider gifts. So the body work, doing the body work, receiving body work, and also giving it really helped me with that, because you have to be fully present,
Yeah.
and you can't bring any of your stuff. So you're in that space of being silent automatically. And whenever you're focused in the heart, automatically your brain waves start to slow down. So when you're focused in your heart, that's what I tell people too. Like, if you can just start with anything, just focus on your heart, and then the ideas and the gifts start coming. So yeah, that it really was my giving and receiving body work that opened me up more. And also it was like remembering how I was when I was a kid as well. So it definitely, as I was doing body work and as I was clearing all the shadow stuff and dealing with clearing the emotions that were like stuck, basically, my natural empathy or sensitivity just really started to grow. And that's, over the years, it's like, when the wind touches me, I know exactly what it's saying to me. When a bird flies by or I hear a cardinal, I know exactly what it's saying. I know when a tree is sad in the corner of my yard, I'll go hug it. Because all of these life forms have emotions like we do too. I know humans are unique, of course, but the cats, I have a few cats, and they tell me exactly what they need, and even inanimate objects, like my refrigerator now starts to ohm every once in a while. So when it starts to go like it's doing an ohm chant, I'll be like, okay, so maybe I need to like chill out. So it's telling me that I need to chill out. It usually does that when I'm like anxious or about something, and it'll start to ohm. I'm like, that's so funny. So I think it's like this illusion of separation, like more and more begins to dissolve this idea that we're separate from, like, I'm separate from you, you're separate from me, I'm separate from this home that I'm living in right now. That has begun to dissolve more and more, and I feel more connected to whether it's an inanimate object or a life form, and that's something we all have, and I'm not special or privy to it. It's something we all have and can tune into. And I think that for me, it's like the more excited I get about something, or the more I decide to be enjoy about something, it's like that's also automatic gifts coming in. Like, you get the inspiration. I don't know if that's for you too, but it's like, getting that chicken skin is what they call it in Hawaii. When you get the, or you get excited about something, you get more information, like that connection you just had in our conversation with your really close friend. I mean, that was like he's right there, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's an important part too, is finding ways to be excited about life. If I were to give that to somebody and say, well, how are you so empathic, or how do you connect with spirit? Or I would say, well, do something that you really love, get excited about it. And then your spiritual gifts will start just coming online. That's a natural part of it. So
I love that too. Yeah, I think I love that you mentioned that, because I do think obviously everyone's different and everyone's depression comes from different things. Situational, it can be grief, it can be that they have mental illness and it's literally just a chemical thing happening. But overall, I think we can all get back to ourselves. And even just in my life, when things aren't going the way that I wanted them to, hoped they would, I just keep remembering to bring it back to myself, and remembering that it sounds depressing, but it really isn't, because we're never really alone. But just remember that no one else can meet my needs but me. No one else in the world, not my mom, not a partner, nobody else. And when it comes down to it, what truly brings me basic joy and connectedness. Some people don't know what that is. And I think that's, can be part of the problem. I know what I love to do. And I have that advantage where I love to do a million things. So usually it's just, I like to go hiking, or I need to go travel right now because I know that I need to see something new. But I do think, not to minimize people's depression, because it's very valid and it can sometimes go on for a long, long time. And you have to actually allow yourself to feel it as well, and not try to stuff it
Right.
away, and just be like, this sucks, this hurts, this feels terrible. And I've asked myself in the past, am I going to die? Is this going to kill me? Okay, this is, and fortunately I haven't felt that way in 10, 15 years, but going through addiction recovery of codependence, it was like, okay, I had to get to the point of feel the pain. And what does it really feel like? Let's break it down into smaller parts. Is it killing me? Am I going to die right now? No. What's happening? Okay, my stomach's in a knot. My heart feels heavy. I feel like I want to cry. I feel hopeless. Um, but is that
Yeah.
real? Or is that just, and it's kind of like breaking it down and just going, feel it, like sink into it, really feel it. And know that eventually the more you let yourself feel it, the more it will release it.
Yeah.
For me, it's like yoga, meditation, those things help. But when you're doing remote healing with your clients, how much of the work you do is intuitive based? And what do you actually do? And in what ways can you help them? What is it that you do? Is it custom for each person, I assume? But then what kind of modalities do you use to help somebody restore themselves back to balance, both either emotionally or physically?
Great question. So yes, it's very customized. I'll usually just start like I'm talking with you, just ask them some questions, get to know them. I find that as soon as I start talking with somebody, that energy just starts coming through, whatever that means. As soon as I get on the phone with them, or Zoom or whatever, the energy starts coming through. So that person has given permission just by signing up for a session, that they want to be with me and they need the help. Um, and then, so I'll ask questions and I'll listen just to get a sense of the person. And it will be customized. So we might decide to talk for an hour, and even, or they might decide that they just want to talk for an hour. And so during that time, what I feel like energy coming through, which is just whatever that is that's helping them, whatever they're talking about, the energy will go to those areas of their life. That's one example. Another example might be, they might come with a list, like, this is what's going on that I don't like the parts of their life that they're having trouble with. So then I'll listen. I'll just keep listening to them, and opening up my heart, and I can tend to see, sometimes it's something that's stuck in the physical body, sometimes it's ancestral, or something that they held on to as a belief from a very young age. So I'll begin to kind of design a map in my mind of how the energy portion of it, or energy portion, which you could separate from the whole thing. It's all energy anyway, but separate from the talking portion. So then I'll just, I'll ask them to relax and close their eyes, for example. This is another example, and then we'll kind of go into a space, and I'll let them know what I see. What tends to happen a lot of my sessions is I'll be guiding them, such as, like, take some breaths from the heart, put your hand on your heart. There might be some physical areas, like they might need to touch the back of their head. And so as this is happening, they're actually healing these parts of themselves. And it's not just physical, but it's also the parts of the the session where they had mentioned earlier that were causing them trouble. So like, something that had happened at the age of 6 might be stuck here. And so they're bringing energy to that. Or they might just have had a really hard time with like a tenant, like they were a landlord and they had a hard time with a tenant, and that energy stuck to them some way. So they might have to touch a certain part of their body, but not necessarily. I could say, imagine that you're touching this part of your body. You don't have to, so I'm trying to make it as comfortable as possible. And I let them know if there's any part, please let me know if you don't feel comfortable, but it's usually people are just very open. I see a lot of this happening in the nervous system, that forms a lot of our traumas from the past. What they do, or our subconscious, what it does is it actually forms physically in the nervous system, whether that be disease. It can also be emotions, and I see them as molecules most of the time. This is what I started to do when I was doing hands-on. So I would see that, and then I just watch the energy coming through, and which is basically my heart being open and holding space and loving them. I see them to begin to dissolve. So, what they had feared or what they were experiencing might be a 10 by the time we started a session, and then it might be down to a 5, or it might be down to a 0 by the time we finish. That is part of it. Also, like I have one client, she's really into the whole spiritual world, and she wants to open up her ability to see and to feel. And so we'll just work on that for a whole session. And then she'll give me feedback. She's like, oh, I can feel the energy now. I can see the energy now. So it could be parts of the body. So there's the idea of expanding energy, and there's the idea of clearing the things that no longer serve us, so we can move back to ourselves. I don't know if that answers your question.
I was going to tell you that you answered
different.
it. No, I was going to say you answered it so much better than I asked it. I was having trouble putting the words together, and you got what I was trying to say. I wanted to kind of know how it all works and how intuition plays into it, and how the healing actually kind of actually takes place. So, is there anything that you have coming up, or just in general? You can share your website, which I'm going to put in the description box below, but is there anything that you want to share? It could even just be some revelation that you had, but also share where we can find you and that kind of thing.
So my website would be radicalheartworks.com, and you can see what I offer there. You can read a little bit about me and see about my sessions. Also have free content on there. I have a YouTube channel that's been a little bit denied lately, so I need to get back on that.
Yeah.
And I have like a free prayer list where I do prayers for you as well. That's free. I try to offer free content, as much as possible that can be helpful. And I might be just doing this whole journey. I might be just doing it for myself, and I don't even know that. It's just so funny.
It doesn't. No, because it'll find the people that it's meant to find.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell myself too, which is, I believe, because there's so many podcasts about this topic out there, and they have thousands of subscribers, and that's wonderful. And I have fewer. I know I'll get there, but I also have faith that it's about finding the people that my style resonates with. And hopefully it resonates with they'll support all of the channels, and all of us. But
Right.
I think you're always like, there's so many manifestation coaches out there, for example. And I know the ones that I like to watch on YouTube, and it just comes down to a resonance with their energy and their personality and the way they speak. So I feel like even if I'm sure it reaches more than one person, but I think that it's for the right person to find it at the right time, and it's just what they need. And I think even as a medium, there's some people that I've learned this, as there have been a few times where I just couldn't make the connection for some reason. And my mentor and other mediums have said sometimes that happens. It's our own energy. Sometimes your energy and their energy just doesn't quite meet in the middle. And that in that case, they say we refer them to another medium and say, I'm just not the person for you. It's nothing personal. It's just an energetic thing. And that's something I have to, so far it hasn't happened exactly, but I think that yeah, we find the people we're meant to find. Our message reaches the people that it's meant to reach. And
Yes.
we just trust that what we're doing is helping somebody, even if it is that one person. If it's that one person who
Yeah.
is like, I don't want to be here anymore, and they heard this interview today for whatever reason, and it made them think twice about ending their life, we've done our job. I don't care if anyone else hears
Absolutely.
it. If we, and it doesn't even have to be as grand as saving a life, but just if one thing
Yeah.
resonates, that's great.
Yes. I so believe that too, Shannon. It's like you can't be an imposition to anybody. You can't pressure anybody and say I've got the message or
Yeah.
I'm here to upgrade humanity. I love that one.
Right. Right.
You know, it's like yeah, and just like that one person, and if they show up, I mean, I have had experiences with a few people that there wasn't that resonance, and
Yep.
that's totally okay. You know,
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with me, and you can't look at it like, oh, I must not be that great of a medium compared to this person because they have
Yeah.
all of these clients, and you know, it's like, who cares? It's like
Yeah.
you touch one life. I mean, just by opening your heart and holding space, like you say, that's all you need, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not doing this for money. I mean, I have other work that I go to, you know, to make. So it helps. I mean, it would be
Uh,
awesome if I could
yeah.
do this for like, you know,
Because that's,
like
yeah,
all the
same.
time, because it's my joy and I love
Yeah.
it, and my heart really is open to helping people. But yeah, it's just thank you for sharing that, because that's definitely my belief as well.
Yeah. You too, Tyler. And if there's one thing you want people to know, what is that one big thing?
One thing.
One thing.
I probably will start with one thing and then I'll just go
That's
on.
okay. Just whatever comes to mind.
No, I want people to kind of just give themselves a break. Like that would be the first step of the one thing.
Yeah.
And then the next one thing after that
Yeah.
would
Go
be
for it.
like would be like learning how to honor yourself. I mean, don't, it's like love ourselves, that's a part of it, but it's just
Mhm.
like giving yourself a break and just learning to like yourself, I guess, would be
Yeah.
the next thing. Like that's such a huge thing. It's like we don't like ourselves enough. We have, we're just constantly like evaluating or beating ourselves up, or there's something that we're doing that's not good for us. And I think that learning how to like ourselves it sounds small, but it's so huge. Like
Mhm.
life, that's life. The magic will come when we start honoring ourselves and start liking ourselves. And that's the beginning. That's the very first step of our heart opening, and moving into that space, that magical space where our hearts are really, really open, is that the liking ourselves. So
And I
if
think
that's the
that's,
one thing.
I love that one thing. It's just a conversation starter. It doesn't have to be literal. I think that's the
Yeah,
thing
I
that
know, I
it's
know.
actually it's actually like almost easier to love ourselves than to like ourselves. Even as you said that, it just struck me that even I was talking with my friend this weekend, and she's so lovely, and she was talking and she goes, "Oh my God, I'm being so annoying." And I said, "No, you're not." She's like, "I'm annoying myself." And I said, "I get that. I feel sometimes you're talking and all of a sudden you're like, I'm so sick of myself. I'm
Yeah,
sick of my voice. I'm just annoying myself." And she said it out loud, but I think so many of us say it in our heads, like, "Oh, what is," so just because we've been
right.
around ourselves too much that day or whatever it is.
Right.
And it's like, I've gotten the self-love thing down now, but sometimes, and actually, but it took a long time to get me to the place where I actually could say, I like myself, I like who I am, I respect myself, and I'm proud of who I am. And I don't put myself above anybody else, but I'm really, truly content with the human being I am and grateful that I'm me. And I wouldn't want to be anybody else. I'm glad that I'm me. And that took, I had 40 years to get there where I was like, I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with the skin I'm in. I'm comfortable with the person that I am. I'm comfortable with all of my character flaws and my gifts. And so I think that's a really wonderful point you made. I want to thank you. This has been so much fun. I want to thank you for showing up and saying yes, and just sharing with such vulnerability. And I think people are really going to like this one, especially. And I look forward to seeing all the comments. Make sure you come and check them because people write the sweetest things. And
Oh,
thank you so
I
much. I'll have
will.
all your info. You and I will be in touch as friends because now we're
Yeah.
friends. And
Absolutely.
when I'm out in Hawaii, I'll let you know because I want to
Please.
go back. And so thank you again. It's been such a pleasure. And this is why I do this, because I love meeting people like you and being able to talk about my most favorite topic.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Shannon. You're a great person. You have a beautiful heart, and I thank you for sharing your vulnerability as well, and just making this an easy conversation for me. And I hope your other guests feel the same way, just to be able to chat and hang out, and even if that's that one person that hears it, that's all
Exactly.
right. So, and thank you
Yeah,
for the humor and just the lightness of this, and
you too.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
High five.
All right.
Thanks.